Okay, let's unpack this number for a second. Over 37,000 people in the U.S. injured by nail guns every single year.
37,000.
Yeah. Think about that. It kind of makes you look twice at what seems like just another tool, right? On job sites, maybe even in your own garage.
It's true. They're so common, these nail guns. It's almost easy to just forget how dangerous they can be.
Hmm.
But that statistic, yeah, it's a real wake-up call. These are powerful tools. They really demand, full attention and knowing the safety rules inside out.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're not trying to scare anyone, but we want you, our listener, to get up to speed quickly on what really matters for nail gun safety.
Right.
We've dug into OSHA, that's the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and UOSH, which is Utah's version, looking at their regs, and also some pretty sobering stories of actual incidents.
Yeah, those really hit home.
Think of this as your quick guide, getting the crucial stuff for using these tools without getting hurt.
And it's worth remembering, these rules, these regulations, they didn't just appear out of thin air.
No.
Often, each one is there because someone got hurt, sometimes badly.
Right.
It's knowledge learned the hard way, really, designed to stop it happening again.
Exactly. So our mission here is pretty simple. Pull out the most important bits from the safety guidelines, the incident reports, so you understand the real risks and how to avoid becoming, well, one of those 37,000 statistics. We want to give you clear, organized info, maybe a few aha moments, but without burying you in technical jargon.
And it's interesting looking at both OSHA and UOSH, right? Because Utah's rules basically mirror the federal ones.
Okay.
So the core principles are identical. Mentioning UOSH just makes it maybe more real for folks in Utah. Shows it's not just some far-off federal thing. It's enforced locally, too.
Right, brings it closer to home. So, okay, let's get down to it. The rules of the game. OSHA and UOSH in Utah, they're the main players for workplace safety. What's their role specifically with nail guns?
Well, their main job is ensuring a safe place to work. Simple as that, really.
Okay.
For nail guns specifically, they've set up mandatory rules, things designed specifically to cut down the risk of injuries. And these aren't just helpful tips, they're actual legal requirements.
Mandatory. Got it. And what kind of specifics are we talking about? You mentioned a couple of key regulations earlier.
Yeah, so OSHA 29 CFR 1926.302 is a big one. For anyone not familiar, 29 CFR is the labor section of federal rules, and 1926 is all about construction safety.
Right.
And section .302 deals with power tools. It says pneumatic nailers must have a safety device to stop them firing accidentally.
Okay.
It also talks about secure hose connections, keeping the tool in good shape, basically making sure it works as intended safely.
So no duct tape fixes or anything like that?
Exactly, no shortcuts. And then there's 1926.30, which is broader. It says all tools, nail guns included, need regular checks for damage and must have the right safety guards. UOSH enforces these same standards in Utah, through inspections and safety programs. The whole idea is if you follow these rules, which, like I said, came from learning from accidents, you create a much safer work environment.
Okay, so the rules are definitely there for good reason. And speaking of reasons, that number, 37,000 injuries a year, wow. It really focuses the mind on the potential consequences. Where do these injuries usually happen on the body?
Yeah, the data's pretty consistent. Hands and fingers take the biggest hit, over half of all the reported injuries.
Over half, wow.
Yeah, but our sources also show injuries to legs, feet, necks, even the face. They happen way too often. It just shows how vulnerable you can be.
Gosh, that's sobering. Why those areas? Is it linked to specific tasks, or what are the main ways these things happen based on what we looked at?
Well, you see a few main types of hazards. Nail penetration is the most obvious one. A nail goes where it shouldn't. We saw one case, really detailed, where a nail ricocheted, like off the wood, and embedded in a worker's hand. It damaged nerves, tendons, long-term impact on their ability to work, to do everyday things.
Oh, man, you can just imagine. That's awful. What else leads to these injuries?
Ricochets and unintentional firing are pretty significant factors, like the nail gun hits a knot in the wood or glances off a hard surface.
Okay.
There was this one incident report. A worker was nailing a beam. The gun kind of jumped or recoiled, and it fired a second nail upwards. just missed hitting a coworker. A really close call. Shows how fast things can go wrong.
Scary stuff. Sounds like you really need to pay attention to what you're nailing into.
Absolutely. And then there's accidental firing when you're moving the tool or if the tip on something accidentally.
How does that happen?
Well, if your finger stays on the trigger while you reposition the gun, or that contact tip just brushes against your leg or a ladder rung or something, bang.
Oh.
There's a really tragic story of a worker lowering the gun, finger still on the trigger, nail went right into his leg. Deep wound. Just highlights, keep that finger off until you're absolutely ready to fire.
Just a split-second lapse, huh? With huge consequences.
Precisely. And working in awkward spots overhead on ladders, it makes everything riskier.
Yeah.
We read about one really severe case. Worker nailing overhead, the gun slipped, nail went into his skull.
Oh, my God.
Miraculously, he survived, but the report detailed significant long-term cognitive issues, physical problems. It's a horrific reminder that these injuries can be absolutely life-changing.
Horrific is the word. It really drives home that we're not just talking about minor cuts here.
No, not at all. And finally, and this is a really crucial one, people sometimes forget messing up when clearing a jammed nail.
Right, jams happen.
They do. But trying to clear it without disconnecting the air hose first, or trying to bypass the safety features to get it unjammed, that's led to deaths. Seriously.
Wow, fatalities.
Yes. It just shows you have to follow the safety steps every time, even for something that seems like a small hassle, like a jam.
Okay, this paints a very, very clear picture of the dangers. So, what are the absolute must-do safety measures, the best practices to actually prevent these things?
One of the absolute biggest things is the trigger mechanism on the nail gun itself. The sources strongly recommend using what's called a full sequential trigger.
Okay, full sequential. Now, for listeners maybe not deep in the weeds on nail gun tech, how is that different from other triggers? Why is it so much safer?
Good question. So with a full sequential trigger, you have to do two things in order. First, press the contact, tip the nose of the gun firmly against the wood.
Okay.
Then second, pull the trigger. Only then will it fire. This two-step process makes it much harder to fire accidentally.
Right, compared to
contact triggers, which people sometimes call bump fire triggers. But those, if you keep the trigger pulled, every time you bump the nose against something, it fires a nail.
Ah, okay. I can see how that would be riskier.
Exactly. Much higher risk of unintended shots. So the advice from safety pros is clear. Use full sequential triggers whenever you possibly can.
That makes total sense. So the trigger type is huge. What else? What other key safety practices?
Training. Proper, thorough training is just essential. Anyone using a nail gun needs to know how their specific model works. Loading, unloading, the trigger type it has, and crucially, how to use it safely in different situations. And if you're ever unsure about anything, ask. Seriously, there is zero shame in asking for help or clarification when safety's on the line.
Couldn't agree more. If in doubt, ask. Seems like rule number one for anything potentially dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay, so beyond the tool and the training, what about actual procedures on the job?
Yeah, several key things. First, keep your hands well clear of where the nail comes out, the line of fire. If you're working with small pieces of wood, don't hold them with your hand. Use clamps or something else to secure them.
Good.
Before you nail, check the surface. Look for knots, metal, anything that can make the nail ricochet. And this one's huge, non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Always disconnect the nailer from the air hose or battery.
Always.
Before you make any adjustments, before you clean it, before you try to clear a jam, or even if you just put it down for a minute, disconnect it.
That simple act, disconnecting the power, sounds like it could prevent a ton of accidents just by itself.
It absolutely could. And just as important, never, ever, under any circumstances, mess with the safety features. Don't disable them. Don't modify them. They're there for a reason to protect you. Tampering just invites disaster.
Makes complete sense. Okay, can't talk safety without talking PPE, personal protective equipment. What are the absolute essentials for nail gun use?
Eye protection. Number one, absolutely mandatory.
Yeah.
You got to wear it every single time.
Every time.
The risk of a nail, or even just a wood chip hitting your eye, permanent blindness is a real possibility. So impact-resistant safety glasses, maybe even a face shield. No excuses.
Okay, eyes covered. What else?
Hearing protection. That constant pop, pop, pop of a nail gun adds up. It can cause serious long-term hearing damage. So earplugs or earmuffs are essential too.
Right, the noise factor. Often overlooked.
It is. And finally, safety boots. Good, sturdy footwear protects your feet if you accidentally drop the tool or from stray nails on the ground.
Okay, so eyes, ears, feet. Covered. What if someone notices their nail gun isn't working right? What should they do?
Simple. Take it out of service immediately. Don't try to push through. Tag it, report it to your supervisor, whatever the procedure is. Never, ever try to use a nail gun that's broken or seems like it's been tampered with. It's just way too dangerous.
All this really emphasizes, doesn't it, that you have to treat these tools with serious respect. And to really illustrate this, we read about that incident in Park City. Can you walk us through what happened there? It really ties a lot of this together.
Yeah, it does. This involved a worker. He was up on a ladder, and he was using a nail gun with one of those contact triggers, the bump fire type.
Okay, on a ladder, contact trigger.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
No.
Yeah.
And while he was working, the gun bounced unexpectedly. Maybe he hit something hard. Maybe the footing wasn't perfect. But the result was it fired a nail right through his leg.
Oh, wow. Straight through his leg. So looking back at that, what were the main things that went wrong there? The contributing factors?
Well, you hit on a couple already. First, using that contact trigger definitely increased the risk compared to a sequential one.
Right.
Second, being on a ladder is inherently less stable, makes it harder to control the tool precisely, increases the chance of a bounce or slip, and, it probably points to maybe not following all the safe operating procedures perfectly in that situation. Combination of factors, really.
But thankfully, something positive came out of it, right? They made some changes after that.
Yes, they did, thankfully. The supervisor on that job took immediate action. They banned contact triggers completely for that project.
Wow, okay.
And they made sure everyone got mandatory comprehensive safety training specifically on nail guns. It's a clear example of learning from an incident, even a bad one, and putting stronger safety measures in place to stop it happening again.
That's a really powerful example of turning a negative into a positive safety change. Okay, so let's try and boil all this down. If listeners take away just a few key things about nail gun safety, what should they be?
Right. The absolute core message is safety first. Always. No exceptions.
Okay.
Treat that nail gun like it's a loaded weapon. Because functionally, it is.
Good way to think about it.
Never point it at anyone, not even as a joke. Keep your finger completely off the trigger until you are literally ready to fire that nail.
Finger off the trigger. Crucial.
Always, always wear your PPE, especially eye protection. Non-negotiable.
Eyes.
Never mess with the safety features. Don't disable them. Don't bypass them.
That's right.
And always disconnect the power or air hose, battery, whatever, before you clear jam, make adjustments, or when you're not actively using it.
Those are super clear, vital takeaways. And the final piece of advice.
It goes back to what we said earlier. If you have any doubt, any question, any uncertainty at all about using the tool safely or about the situation you're in, ASK. Ask your supervisor. Ask a safety person. Your health, your ability to work, your life.
Yeah.
It's worth way more than saving a few seconds by guessing or taking a chance.
Absolutely. Well said. Work smart, work safe, make sure everyone gets home in one piece at the end of the day. So, as we wrap up this deep dive on nail gun safety, it's clear how vital it is to really understand and, more importantly, consistently follow the rules and the best practices.
Definitely. And maybe something to think about, considering just how fast an accident can happen, right? What small change could you make in your routine or maybe on your job site? What little thing could make the biggest difference in stopping a nail gun injury? Think beyond just the rules for a second. Think about the human impact.
That's a really important question to ponder. Ultimately, prioritizing safety, looking out for yourself and your coworkers. It's not just about following rules. It's about making sure everyone gets to go home safe and sound.